Our next guest tonight is number 5 all-time in scoring in the history of BYU basketball. We had the number 4 rusher. Now we've got the number 5 scorer. Started every game of his 4-year career with a break in the middle to serve a church mission. Then led BYU to 3 WAC Championships, 3 NCAA Tournaments. Selected 23rd overall by the Indiana Pacers in the 1984 NBA Draft. Also played in Europe. It is a pleasure to welcome the great Devin Durrant to the Wise Guys. Thanks for coming.
Oh, it's great to be here with you. Thank you, gentlemen.
This is an intimidating outfit, I'm sure, as we watched you come in. But we just sat with Curtis Brown, and it's amazing how many amazing people come through BYU.
Yeah, well said. Hopefully we get to talk about a few of them as we move forward tonight, because it's a place where young people enter there, and the different growth that takes place, and then the lives that they live post graduation. We'll have a lot to talk about.
And let's start with Europe, since you played there for a long time. Every college basketball player that Blaine and I come across thinks they're going to the NBA. And then if it doesn't work out in the NBA, they just say, well, we're just going to go to Europe. Like there's a million teams in Europe and all this money that are just waiting for American basketball players where it didn't quite work out with the NBA. Is that a major misconception?
You know, it is, because the talent level there is pretty impressive, and it's certainly been elevated since I was there many years ago. Yeah, I think you're exactly right.
It's not a money grab. It's not you got to be good to get there.
Yeah, you certainly do. And as you talk about that, one of my wonderful teammates from way back when was Steve Trumbo.
Yeah. Yes.
And talk about European basketball. He was a legend there, and I got to hear a lot of Steve Trumbo's stories. And he went over there as an American, competed as an American, and then became a Spanish national, and was able to play there, extend his career, and found a wonderful wife there in Spain. But Steve was a great teammate back in Provo, and had a wonderful career in Europe, in the country of Spain.
We hung out with him.
We got a great chance to hang out with Steve when that 81 team came back and visit with him. I hadn't seen him for a long time, since we were all in school together. And what a great representative he was of BYU over there. The cool thing about Steve was that a lot of those players go over and they play, and they don't invest themselves in the community over there, and they just come back to the States in the off season. But Steve he made it his home. You know, his wife is from there. They raised their kids there. He got involved in the community, and he was a great representative of BYU over in Spain during that time, wasn't he?
Very much so. He was very well loved throughout the country. Steve Trumbo was a very easy person to love.
Sometimes Europe comes over here. The Soviet Union came and played an exhibition game in '79. Remember that?
Certainly.
What was that like? This was back when they came out. I remember as a kid being there. They came out with a USSR red and white jerseys, and it was like Rocky IV or something like that. What was it like that night?
You know, before we go there, you're turning back the clock. Can we talk just a minute about your dad?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
We can do whatever we want. The
fun part about this show is we do whatever we want.
Dale McCann, back in those days, he really was BYU. He represented the school and all the alumni and all the supporters.
Director of the Cougar Club. Yeah.
And it just thank you for the impact that your father had on all of us as young athletes.
Well, thanks.
And just he passed too young.
Yeah.
And I just want to bring his name up and remember what a positive impact that he had on all the athletes in the university and the Cougar Club.
Well, thank you. And you should know that I have a younger brother named Devin because of you.
I love to hear that. Please.
I got a Mark, too, from Mark Wilson. We told him when he had him on.
We all have great memories of Dale whether it was going to an NCAA tournament and Dale being there and coordinating all the things there, or down to a Holiday Bowl. And I was in 4 Holiday Bowls and a Citrus Bowl, and having Dale there supporting us, and just a great person he was.
Well, because of my dad, I had tickets to that game. So now let's go back to the Russians at the Marriott Center. What there was a straight, was it a couple months later is when the U.S. hockey team beat the Soviet Union in the semifinals in Lake Placid. So there was that big, but this basketball team was supposed to be really good too. And you get to face them on your home floor. What do you remember from that?
At the time when they came in, we were told that they were the #1 ranked amateur team in the world at the time. And I think the center was Trichenko, if I remember right. And they came in, and they were men playing against boys.
There was 22,000 people there.
And you may remember it better than I do. I just remember that in the end, we got banged up a lot, but we came out victorious.
Yeah, I don't remember a lot.
They're a big physical team. I remember that.
And it's hard to find stuff written about that team, but you're right. They were now foreign teams come over all the time, but this was the cut above. And I don't even know how they ended up coming to Provo. Maybe Kreshimir Chosic knew somebody back in the day that got that done, but I just remember it was an early November game, and so the season didn't start till later, but that was one of the magical nights at the Marriott Center.
Yeah, that was a beautiful night. When you talk about European teams that came to the Marriott Center to compete against us, I think the following year they brought in the Italian national team. And now that was a night when we got beat up. They were very physical.
Yeah.
It was fun. I can't remember the outcome of the game, but I do remember a lot of bruises from it.
Isn't it fun? Basketball is such an international game. And we see these teams now, they go off and do a tour of Europe and they go represent the university when they're traveling around over there. So it's not just about gelling as a team and playing, but they're out there representing BYU when they're on these tours. They get to do it every so many years. How important is it for these teams, especially BYU teams, to have this opportunity to go to different parts of the world and represent the university and what BYU is all about?
Well, just speaking from my own experience, they took us to Europe. We spent time in Italy and in Yugoslavia at the time. Kreshimir took us around, and we had a chance to compete there in Croatia at the time. And we had it. I think what it really does is it builds chemistry amongst the team. You certainly want to go and represent the university as best you can. But the byproduct is you're spending time with the guys. You're getting to know the coaches a little bit away from the court. And I look back on that experience with such fondness. I still can see a picture of all of us standing in the Colosseum in Rome. And that was our team shot that following year.
Now there's a temple over there.
Yes, absolutely. A gorgeous temple.
All right, let's talk about you for a minute. Actually, most of this interview is about you. So
that's right. That's why we got him here.
27.9 points a game.
Okay, I want to interrupt again then.
What?
This is
about you. This is about you.
I need to hear about Libby. Can you give us just a quick update?
We talk about her once in a while on the show.
Yeah, let's take a minute and update on Libby.
So Libby is Devin's talking about our youngest daughter Libby,
right,
who's married to Dallas Lloyd.
Sure.
And you guys know Dallas. The Lloyds are a great family from Pleasant Grove. Dallas was the Utah Player of the Year and then played at Stanford.
And we love his father, Casey.
Yeah, you guys know Casey and Ange. Sure. We love him too. This is a funny story. Dallas came to me and said to me, hey, and they were long distance dating. And he says to me, I'm in love with Libby and I can't live without her and I want to marry her. And me being the protective girl dad, I'm like, Dallas, you need to just figure this out because this long distance thing's working fine. And Libby's got another year of school and my daughters are going to graduate from college. You're at Stanford. She's here. You can see each other on breaks. I think it's all fine. That's what I said to him. And he says, I want to make you a promise. If you'll let her come support me for my last couple of years here at Stanford in football, and then whatever comes after that in the NFL, when my time, he goes, I'm not interested in being on a practice squad. And if I don't make a 53-man roster in the NFL, then I will come back. We'll come back. She will finish school. And then I will support her dream. We're going to chase my dream for a couple of years. Then we'll go chase her dream. So I'm like, okay, That sounds like an honorable deal. Let's just make this deal. So we shook on it. The other thing that he did was smart is they were in town. He was in town and said, "Hey, is there any way I could go work out with you? Could we go to the gym together?" And he asked me all this while we're at the gym. So he had me, and so to Dallas's credit, and you guys know the Lloyds really well, he was a phenomenal player at Stanford. They were the number 3 team in the country. He was the defensive captain, Christian McCaffrey, the offensive captain. And they win the Rose Bowl, kill Iowa in the Rose Bowl. And he goes off and is with the Chicago Bears, and he got cut right at the very, very end. And they came back to Provo. He says, this is the deal we made. And they came back to Provo. They lived with us in the basement. She took like 18 hours a semester, finished school, and they moved to New York. And Dallas supported her. He says, hey, I've got a master's degree in economics from Stanford. I can get a job anywhere, which is true, right? So he got a job back there. And she started auditioning and has had some pretty prominent roles back in New York on Broadway. And now she's playing one of the 2 leading roles, Nini in Moulin Rouge, in the first national touring company, Broadway touring company. They're currently in San Francisco. And so they've traveled, and Dallas's job allows him to work remote. So Dallas and Libby have a 12-month contract where they're traveling around the country, and she's playing this leading role in Moulin Rouge, which won 10 Tony Awards last year on Broadway.
Wow.
So they'll be here in Utah for a short run in December. We're all going to go watch them up in Salt Lake. So there's Libby's update.
A couple things.
For Devin.
So slide your chair over so you're better positioned on our camera. Just slide it over here this way, and then pull that mic right under your chin. And then no more deflecting any questions.
Yes, now it's
we're
about
not on
you.
Devin Durrant show. This is on the Wise Guys. So you averaged 27.9 points a game during your senior year. Stay with me here. You have a stretch of games where you scored 36, 35, 34, 38, 33, and 36.
What?
What was it about your game that was so difficult to defend?
Oh, wow. Let's see. How do I answer this question, Blaine?
Well, I know what I think, but
We got our own answers, but what do you got?
You know, one of the nice things about when my senior year, the coach was Liddell Anderson. His background was the ABA.
Yeah.
And obviously Utah State. But he was accustomed to getting the ball to the hot hand, and he ran our offense through me. And so, fortunately, I had a lot of very unselfish teammates who would get the ball, and I wasn't gun shy.
No.
And so,
In fact,
we were always in attack mode, and some nights it came together.
I asked your brother Mark for some questions, and he put them out on Twitter today. And one of them, did you, in fact, ever meet a shot you didn't like?
this is what Mark said.
Yeah, your younger brother Mark.
I told everybody earlier on the show, everybody needs to follow Mark on Twitter because he's hilarious to follow.
But
Sometimes irreverent, but always funny.
You made a lot of shots. You took a lot of shots, but you were the guy, like you mentioned, everyone's job was to get you the ball because no one could stop you. What kind of feeling is that? I've never had that feeling. What is it?
Again, basically you're just trying to do your job, and my role was to score, and so if they put me in that role, I was going to do the best I could.
Green light. It's called the green light, right?
Here's the honest to goodness truth from a person that's been a basketball analyst for more than 30 years. Devin's length combined with his quickness and then his pure shooting ability is a rare combination. Yeah. You have some guys that are really quick and really bouncy, but don't have great touch. So they can get to the rim or they can get their shot, but they're not great pure shooters. You have guys with length that are physical, but just don't have the touch and the skill around the basket or from distance that Devin had. And then you have a guy that can face up and shoot with just beautiful rotation on the ball. You can make a training video of Devin shooting the basketball. It's like perfection. And I know that comes from hours and hours and years of getting shots up and working on your game. And then if you try to push up on Devin, he'll put the ball on the floor and take you to the rack and finish in any left-handed, right-handed, finger roll, dunk it on. Didn't matter. And so that's a rare combination to have the kind of length that he has with the shooting skill and the quickness, and then the mentality that, okay, Coach, if you're going to build this offense around me, I'll take the skill set.
Is this all true?
Can
Is
I
this all
interrupt
true?
him?
Because that's what he could do.
Yes,
and
you
he
can.
won't tell you that, but that's what he
You
could
had the
do.
green light. What all that meant was you had the green light.
Yes.
Well, I'll tell you a quick story. Liddell Anderson came to me at the beginning of my senior year, and he said, Devin, I'm going to let you go. When you get tired, go ahead and take yourself out of the game, and you can put yourself back in the game. And I thought, wow.
That's power.
I like this. And about 3 games in, I was tired, and so I said, Coach, I need a little bit. I need a break. So I went and took myself out, sat down. I was there for about a minute. And I thought to myself, what in the world have I done? And so I went and subbed myself back in the game. And I never voluntarily took myself out of a game the rest of that year.
Nor should you. And you never missed a start.
Just stayed in. I was sitting courtside, and you guys are playing, I think it's Notre Dame at our place. And the Marriott Center, you remember that one?
Yes.
And I shouldn't even tell this story. He's passed away, so you can't, but Elder Perry was sitting on the front row, in the president's row, right? And I'm sitting courtside, and Devin goes in, and he makes a layup, and he turn around and run back down to the court to defend, and a Notre Dame guy steps in front of you. I don't know if you remember this, and basically forearm checks him to the ground. And Devin goes down, and it's like a gasp. And I hear from right behind me, "What are you looking at, ref? Are you blind?" And I'm thinking, wow, that was a big voice. Who was that? And I turn around, and Elder Perry is standing up, leaning over the front rail, and that's what he's screaming at the ref. And then Sister Perry, I see her hand come up onto his shoulder, and she pulls him back down and pats him and gives him a little concerned look. And he goes like this, and he takes a breath. I'm like, it's one of my favorite memories in the Marriott Center. Elder Perry was defending Devin like nobody's business out there.
He loved coming to games. We've had national champions on this show, Olympic medalists. We've had Super Bowl champions on this show, but never before until tonight have we had someone who's spoken at General Conference 3 times. Now, let's be honest here. Is that nerve-wracking?
Wow. To say the least. I remember in 1984, I was invited to speak in the priesthood session. Mm-hmm. And I've never felt my heart pounding in such a way that I thought it might just jump right out of my chest. It was pounding so hard. But it's been a wonderful honor. I have a story from 1984. You want to turn back the clock again and share that from priesthood session?
We live in the past all the time.
Yes, we do. Hey, and the further in the past it gets, like the better we were.
Because there can be less verifications.
Yeah.
All right, so 1984.
So I'm nervous, as I mentioned. I'm getting ready to speak, and I'm the first speaker. And President Hinckley, he wasn't the prophet at the time, but he was conducting and said our first speaker will be Devin Durrant, and then after this hymn. And so the choir sings the hymn, and I'm trying to time my arrival at the pulpit just as the hymn ends, as we all try to do that. And so the choir started singing Amen. And I knew that if they were singing Amen, the song was about over. And so I jumped out of my chair and started walking up the stairs in the old tabernacle, and I get ready to turn the corner to head to the pulpit, and they start another verse of the song.
It must have been the Spirit of God, like a fire is burning, that goes forever.
So I'm stuck. What do I do? Do I walk down the stairs?
And it's not like you're 5'9".
Exactly. Not easy to miss. So a friendly hand reaches out, and it's Elder Faust.
Yeah.
And he pulls me over, and he scoots over on his chair, and I'm basically sitting on Elder Faust's knee while the choir sings the last verse of the song.
Oh, man.
That's classic.
It was so comforting. And then somebody tapped my shoulder, and I turned, and it was Elder Maxwell. I got to shake his hand.
Yeah.
And then I looked, and there was another hand reached out. There was an empty chair, and another hand reached out, and I was shaking hands with Elder Russell M. Nelson.
Oh, wow.
And the empty chair there was Elder Oaks' chair. He wasn't. That was the conference when Elder Oaks and President Nelson, President Oaks, and President Nelson were sustained as new members of the Quorum of the 12. And so I got to visit with them as I waited for the choir to sing and then off to the pulpit.
Wow.
That's awesome.
Now that is a great,
So you're
that
in
is
the
a great story.
former member of the General Sunday School Presidency, so that puts you up there speaking a couple more times. So put us in your shoes. Once you get to the podium, and there's a teleprompter and there's a timer, and once you get to the podium, what happens?
Well, first your mouth begins to go dry, and
And you know you're on a time limit, right? So you're like saying, "Hey, take 7 minutes, not 8, not 6."
yeah, that's important to stay on time. But what they do is, prior to you speaking, there's a room in the administration building in the basement where you can simulate the experience in the conference center. Sound reverberates, and so you go there and you practice.
Like a green room, kind of
Yeah.
a practice room.
Yes, and
Okay.
they'll have you work through the teleprompter and timing things. And so when you're speaking in the conference center, lights are dim. And so you can't see who you're speaking to. You can see the teleprompter.
Yeah.
So in a way, you are talking to yourself when actually there's a few thousand people.
Or 20, yeah, or whatever.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so it's a bit of a surreal experience because you do feel, in a way, almost all alone up there.
And then when you're done, what's that feeling like?
The relief.
Yeah.
It's so much easier to walk back to your chair than to walk towards the pulpit.
Isn't that
But-
the truth?
And when you're in the conference center, is there an echo? Like, can you hear the sound like a little later out there?
Yes.
Oh man, that's brutal.
Yeah, and that's why they have you practice in that small studio to kind of get accustomed to that.
That's not easy. We're spoiled. Like when we're doing a live show, like when we do game day and there's a lot of fans all around, they give us noise canceling ear things that come up and over and in, and nobody knows this, we can't hear anything but each other exactly at the same time. No echoes, we're spoiled. That's not easy.
I remember.
That's hard.
Oh, go ahead.
Can I add just one thing? Is when I was young, when I spoke in General Conference in 1984 in the priesthood session, when I walked away from there, the feeling that I had was I'd never felt so loved, because all of the general authorities there, they're patting your hand, they're giving you a wink, they're shaking, they're giving you a hug, and then the same thing happens in recent years when I spoke in General Conference. The feeling of love and support from the group of general officers and general authorities, it's unforgettable, the love that you feel as people come up and just commend you for the things that you said.
What causes more anxiety? Speaking in general conference or about to take a game-winning shot?
Oh, it's very easy. General conference anxiety's up here, and taking a shot, hey.
I don't doubt that at all.
It's a great example of the power that comes with being a successful athlete. And there are successful things in, like Marie Osmond was here, successful things in all that we do. But especially around here in our culture, I've seen it with Jimmer when he walks into a room, and that it's something, and it stays with you. And you only earn it by scoring points or catching touchdowns. It's crazy, but you can feel it, can't you? Even after all these years, you walk into a room, like, there's Devin Durrant. You walked into a baseball game, I was calling the game, I look down, I go, Devin Durrant sitting down there.
Yeah, it is interesting to me that for me, my life has moved on. You know, I left BYU in 1984, almost 38 years ago.
Yeah.
And I've had a career, played a little basketball and done other things professionally, and had opportunities to speak here and there. And even today, people will come up and say, "Hey, Devin, hey, I remember back when you hit that shot at BYU." And I think, well, my life has moved on, but for them, I'm frozen back as a Cougar in 1984. And I'm always so flattered when anybody turns back the clock to that time. But it's always it's always a little bit awkward because of the passage of time.
Well, here's a guy who hasn't had anything move on, your brother, who writes, "What was it like to be an All-American and still not be your mom's favorite?"
Well, we're all settled that Mark was our mother's favorite, so that's a given.
They just dealt with that.
He just came to terms early, moved on to the next thing.
I love Mark. When I just go through life and I think, I need a little boost here, I'm going to check my Twitter account, and there's Mark, and he's giving me something to chuckle about. I love him and his dear wife, Marilee, and their children. How blessed I am to have Mark as a
We
brother.
might have him on this show sometime. We haven't decided.
What I love about Mark's is some people are funny, and then some people, there's some intellect to their wit, right? So the things that he puts on there, you go, and then once you think about it, you go, oh, now I get that. That's a deeper sense of humor because he really has a really smart wit about him. Do you ever listen to him on the radio call the games?
Yes, I do. And Mark, this might surprise you, but as we gather as a family, he doesn't have a lot to say.
That is surprising.
Really?
Put him behind the microphone, and he's just so eloquent and
You know why? Because he gets
witty.
paid. He knows he's on the clock when he's behind the mic.
That's funny.
I tell people, my older brother, Matt, is the Chief Justice on the Utah Supreme Court.
Yeah.
So I say, my older brother, Matt, got the brains. Mark got the wit, and I got the height.
And scored all the points.
Yes,
Scored
you
all the
did.
points. Former BYU basketball star Devin Durrant's on the Wise Guys, the 1979 WAC Freshman of the Year and the WAC Player of the Year in 1984. You got a new book out called The Values Delta, Small, Simple Way to Make a Positive Difference. I've looked through this. It's like a workbook with assignments and personal assessments, all based on the importance of positivity.
Yeah, thanks for calling it a workbook, because that really is what it is.
It is a work, but there's
it's
assignments in here. I'm like, man, once I start reading this, I'm going to have to do all this stuff.
But worth
Yes.
it, right?
Yes.
But worth doing the assignments.
Yeah, it's something that I've given a lot of thought to, and it's the subtitle. It's just a small and simple way to make a positive difference, and it really is basically the answer 3 questions. 1, what are your values? 2, what do you value? What's most important in your life? And 3, how do those values that you've outlined impact the things that you value? And so it's an opportunity for some introspection and to track your progress. And so
I like that it's only like
project.
180 pages.
There you go.
And it's a lot of small words which go right into my wheelhouse, but there's a lot of great stuff in here.
It feels in our world today like there's a lot of negative all over. You watch the news, and Dave was a news anchor for more than 30 years, covering world events and all that. I feel like Dave he tried to take a positive tack to things, more so than most you'll ever watch, right? The stories that he tried to cover were positive, but that's unusual. The world seems to be a more and more negative place where people are trying to cover the negative, push people down, do all that. How important, and you talk about positivity in this book, how important is a positive outlook in today's society?
Oh, critical for me. And in the book, one of my priority values is optimism. I just think it's the negativity just weighs us down, and I think we need to do all we can to set it aside and find the good in the world and be optimistic. And when I was, I think I was probably 15 or 16 in high school, and I had a woodshop class, and I had an opportunity to build a big bookcase. And in there, right in the center of that bookcase, I left a space for a poem called The Optimist Creed. Christian Larson wrote it, and I think it was 1914. And it just outlined different ways that we could be optimistic. And I embraced that and want to do that till the day I die.
Speaking of optimism, BYU joins the Big 12 next year. You were a mission president in Dallas a few years back. That's the heart of Big 12 country. How eager are you to have BYU go into that part of the world and stay there?
Love it. I think it's such a great step forward, and I commend Tom and Brian and everybody and Liz for for making that happen. I think it's gonna help us elevate in our competition in all aspects of the university, and I think it's a wonderful move. I'm more than anxious to get there, and experience that level of competition and the level of expectation that's going to come as well.
It's going to be good for the sports programs. They're going to have to step up. The Big 12, like 11 of the last 12 years, is the number one rated basketball conference in America, so it's no easy task. But we look at it from our BYU TV perch and look at these markets that BYU TV now maybe will have some more eyes looking at what's going on and taking a look at BYU and what it represents. Seems to be a really good fit. Bible Belt, good Christian folks. And what's your thoughts? You were mission president in the Bible Belt, really. How do you think BYU will be received in these markets? And will they be respected? Will people inquire and learn more about it? And will it be good for the church and the university?
I believe so. I think that extra exposure is going to be a positive thing. There'll always be a detractor here or there. But overall, if we can increase the exposure to the product that Brigham Young University offers, it's going to be all positive.
Just a few more questions for Devin Durrant in a free throw shooting contest tonight.
Yes.
Who wins, you or Mark, your younger brother? If the contest was tonight, free throws, who wins?
Mark.
Really?
No.
I didn't think
there's
so.
no way.
I should have gone, no.
Like,
no way is an older brother saying that.
I don't bet as a standard prospect.
How many have you hit in a row?
I would bet on Devin.
How many have you hit in a row?
I can't remember.
Like some crazy number?
No, I can't remember. I wish I could give you a nice number.
It seems like Mark would know, like right off the tip of his tongue, how many he's
Mark
made
would
in a
know.
row.
One time I made 27 in a row. He would.
But you were making free throws at Provo High School back in the day, and I think your career percentage is still way up there. You were comfortable at the line.
Were you and Kyle Whittingham and Craig Garrick and all those guys at Provo High at the same time?
Yes. Yeah.
You guys were all. I was thinking about this is a couple weeks ago. I was thinking about all of the guys that came out of Provo High during that time when you were there. When I knew you were coming on the show, and I got thinking, man, what a group of guys, right?
Yeah, Craig Garrick played basketball, I think, his sophomore year, and then focused on football. Yeah. And I wish I would have interacted more with Kyle. He was very quiet in high school.
Yeah.
Now I love to see him in front of the media. He does such a great job, and he's had a fantastic career as the U head coach, and just nothing but good for Kyle.
Marie Osmond was here in August, and we talked about your dating prowess when you guys went out. Before you met Julie. Julie's here. Yeah. She can confirm or deny. Here is a direct quote, Devin.
Oh, my gosh.
She said, quote, "He was a forward on the basketball team and forward on our dates." And we told her, we're going to have you on this show. And she's probably listening tonight because she's all into this stuff. And I know you guys are all dear friends because we saw each other at the Sierra where her performance is and stuff. But would you like to confirm or deny that?
Let's just say that you did a wonderful job at the concert with Marie.
Let's just say that should have been you.
Yes, that should have been you.
That should have been you. And she even called you out while I was up there under duress.
Yeah,
but
let's talk about Marie for a minute.
Yeah, what a unique time that was for you guys to all be hanging out in this group together.
Yeah, it was wonderful memories, and Marie's been a dear friend. But you think about the impact that Marie Osmond has had on the world.
Yeah,
she's one of the strongest women that I know. She's grown up in the public eye. Can you imagine the pressures that she's had to deal with over the years? And we saw him last week in Las Vegas, and I was telling her that she's raised over $8 billion for the Children's Miracle Network.
Yeah.
Yes, she's a fantastic performer, author, does so many wonderful things, but I don't know how you top what she's done for all the children that have benefited from the funds that she's raised through the Children's Miracle Network. It's really remarkable. She's coming out on 40 years participating there, and there's 40 more years there for her to continue to bless lives through that wonderful charity.
She told us what she loved being a student for the time she was there, while even sitting in a class knowing that night she's performing at the Marriott Center, and her friends didn't know it. But there was the group with you, and there was Danny Ainge, and there was Steve Young, and then there was Robbie Bosco, there's Jim McMahon, and then you go over to the baseball team, and you go Tina Gunn, and on the women's basketball team, and all this. This was such a unique time at BYU, and you were right in the middle of it.
Oh, yeah, it was wonderful. It's fun to reflect on those personalities and what they've accomplished at post-graduation, and just brings back a lot of warm memories. And Steve Craig was an old teammate.
Right.
Still a dear friend, and wonderful to see those two together.
Yeah.
And one of my favorite people is Danny Ainge. Just a remarkable teammate. Can you imagine? We're playing basketball, and then his summer job, he's going to go play in the major leagues.
For the Blue Jays.
Yeah, just incredible athlete and great man.
Can you imagine being on a basketball team where you're better than Danny Ainge at scoring baskets? So you had that going for you too.
No, that we would never say that.
We're not saying it. We're just knowing it that both you and he scored a lot of points. Still, 2 top 5 all time BYU.
Yeah, Danny will always be at the top of the list. Just the amazing athlete that he was, but the great teammate that he was.
Yeah.
Danny could have done so much more as far as statistics, but he was all about making each one of us better, keeping us involved, because he recognized for us to get to where we needed to be, it would have to be a team effort.
The thing Danny doesn't get credit for is there wasn't a 3-point line for Danny.
Right.
Can you imagine the points he would have scored had there been a 3-point line when Danny was playing? So, and you absolutely...
How far out did you go?
Oh, Devin would go out and shoot threes all day long.
I was good from about 3 feet in.
That's not true.
That is such...
Although you made a living 3 feet
That
in.
is such baloney.
How far out would you go? If the 3-point line, would that be about as far out as you'd go? 'Cause I know you made a living in the paint.
I wouldn't go out that far. There was no incentive for me to try to extend my jump shot. If I could get to the basket, that's where I was going. Later on, when I played in Europe, now we had a 3-point line, and so I would step out and take advantage of that.
Devin has a face-up jump shot to extend a 3. There was no reason, right, when you were playing. And Danny wasn't...
Danny was still out shooting threes, only getting 2s.
No, but even Danny, like, in today's world... you play around that 3-point line. Like, do you run plays so that, like, when somebody's going to shoot a jump shot out there and come off of a screen, they're behind the 3-point line to be rewarded for that. But, these guys were just, hey, you take the best shot because there's no incentive to be out there shooting it.
Yeah, even at that, we had Scott Rooney out there.
Yeah.
Nobody could shoot better than
Greg
Scott.
Balliff
Scott was a great shooter out there.
Greg Balliff was a fantastic shooter. Yeah. And so we had a lot of different weapons, and they didn't need me shooting outside.
Well, when at that time, and I was lucky to be there with all of you guys at the same time, we were all in school at the same time, our basketball team was making a run to the Elite Eight. And in the NCAA tournament every year, Devin was in the NCAA tournament 3 times. Our baseball team was playing in the College World Series with Wally and Corey and those guys. Our track and field team was nationally ranked. Football team was top 10 program and marching toward a national championship in 1984. It really was an amazing time to be at BYU when there was so much strength across so many sports and so much exposure for the university that was bringing eyes on the university and the missionary mission of the church that hadn't really been there at that level before. It was a fun time to be there together, wasn't it?
Oh, it certainly was, and it was just everything came together during those years. It was almost magical, but now we're looking at, think about what's going on now. Look at our men's cross country team.
Yeah.
Number 1.
The women's cross country team. What Diljeet Taylor's doing with these young women, right? They're fantastic. What Heather Olmstead's doing on the volleyball side,
Jen Rockwood in soccer.
And the list goes on and on. Yeah. Just the accomplishments, and even with our football team, you could change 2 or 3 plays last week, and we have a different outcome. Now we have an opportunity still to make a huge mark this year, and represent the university in a nice bowl game down the road.
Glad you brought that up. So Arkansas's here Saturday. Here's the last big question, then Blaine will hit you up with 5 little ones.
Yours are like, we have one that's at least dedicated to you. But
Yeah. Give us the 3 keys for a BYU win against the Razorbacks on Saturday.
I just hope Jaron feels comfortable. You know, he is such a gifted athlete, and I guess from what I know, I don't know him personally, but just seems like one of the classiest people you'll ever be around. And so I hope he feels comfortable and can find his groove. And, you know, again, we got to get the ground game going.
Yeah, got to run the ball.
Certainly, and I'm hoping someone really takes that role as our lead guy on the ground.
Yeah.
And then defense got to keep doing what they do. You know, we've got some real studs on the defensive side of the ball, and
they were on TV a lot on Saturday night because they were out there for 41 minutes.
They defended too many plays.
Yeah, we got to make sure they're in shape if they're going to have that time of possession the way it was. But that's going to change. We're going to get those
total plays last week. Notre Dame had 73 and BYU had 46. That never works out good. So
in an 8-point game.
And here's the thing, like, you know what I love about Jaron? Like, win or lose, he always comes on the show with, comes out afterwards, does an interview, and he always takes responsibility, even sometimes when it's not his, right? Which teammates love that. Mm-hmm. And he comes out and he goes, hey, I've got to do this better, I've got to do that better. It creates a culture where everybody says, well, I just got to do my job better, and I love that culture. And people said, how was your shoulder? It's fine, there's nothing wrong with it. Well, let me tell you. There was something wrong with his shoulder, and he hardly practiced last week because of it. I think he's going to be significantly better this week. But at that position, at that level, against that level of competition, if you haven't practiced all week, it's hard to go out and execute. And so he did have a little bit of a struggle at the beginning. He really got it going in that second half. I expect him to play great this week because he's going to have a week of practice under his belt.
I feel the same way, and he throws such a beautiful ball. Wouldn't it be great to be a wide receiver? Jaron Hall's back there throwing it.
He's got a stable of them, and he's kind of got what you had. He has the ability to stay in the game until he takes himself out.
Devin used to tell me
that
when we would eat training table together. Devin used to tell me I could come out there and play wide receiver, and I would be good, and I believed him. I believed him.
I would love that. I grew up watching Gifford Nielsen. Dreaming about trying to catch a pass from him, and never happened, but I can still hang on to that dream.
It would have been fun. Frankie Fredericks came out to practice one day just to come out and watch, and I'm like, Frankie, and I threw the ball, and it hit him in the chest and fell down on the ground. And he's like, I just grew up playing soccer.
He's about to catch that thing.
He could have run away from everybody, but he couldn't catch. Devin could have caught the ball. 5 questions are coming up, and where can folks buy your book?
Yes.
By the way, you didn't come on here to promote the book, but after you wrote your book, we said we're talking about the book.
Thank you.
I can't. I'm going to do it. I'm going to do the workbook and everything, and I'm going to give you feedback. I'm certain I'm going to love it.
Well, that sounds great. It's just available on Amazon.
Okay.
And come to my website, thevaluesdelta.com.
Okay.
For those who go there, there's a video near the bottom of the page. It's a story that my father wrote, and it's called No Tracks, The Value of Quiet Service, about 13 minutes long. So get the family together for home evening and enjoy a story that will probably bring a tear or two.
All right. Your dad was the MTC president when I was there. An awesome man.
So and our guys, thanks. Our guys have put up the link on the.
Great.
So people that are on the show will be able to watch that or be able to link into that and go do that. So, okay, time for 5 questions for Devin. And some of them are the same. So we'll start with your favorite sports movie.
Favorite sports movie would definitely be Rocky.
You know what? I knew you were going to say Rocky.
Yeah, that came out when I think is in my junior in high school. And the guys and I, we went to that movie maybe 7 or 8 times.
Have you been to Philly to the art museum and run those stairs?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I've done it too.
Awesome.
It's pretty cool. Okay, your favorite singer or band?
Sergio and Estibaliz. They are Spanish singers. And
what kind of music is this?
Spanish?
It's Spanish music.
This is what you're exposed to when you're over there playing basketball? This group?
Yeah.
What are they again?
Sergio y Estibaliz.
Okay. I'll tell you, that's a first here on the Wise Guys. No one else has come up with that band.
Husband and wife. group, and the most beautiful voice she has.
So we have two, like Justin Bieber from Curtis Brown. Nobody's chosen Justin, and then Sergio.
Okay.
Right?
Sergio.
Sergio. It's Sergio.
And his
Sergio.
wife, Estibaliz.
Estibaliz. I'm learning Spanish from Devin as we're doing this. So. Okay. Favorite breakfast cereal?
This week, it would be...
This week? You just roll through them?
By the way, I had Apple Jacks before I came to the show. So
I had
I'm
Fruit
all
Loops.
about the sugar.
What are you thinking?
I like Cheerios.
That's old school.
Do you take some sugar and put sugar on it, or do you just
No
eat
sugar. Yeah, gotta have a banana. And if there's some strawberries or peaches, absolutely.
I like that with some sugar, so I'm
No, like,
I'm
see,
75% there.
That just changed it for me because at first I'm like, come on,
fruits.
Devin, just plain old Cheerios, like you might as well eat cardboard. But then when he added, he's gonna put the bananas and the strawberries on it. I'm all good with it.
You know how soft kids are today. When we were at church and we were little and we were learning, getting our teeth and stuff, we were eating plain Cheerios.
Yeah.
Bag of Cheerios. Today it's Fruit Loops, it's Captain Crunch, it's Frosted Flakes, and it's like, man,
Hey,
that's
and
they don't know they're living the
He
dream.
likes regular Captain Crunch. I'm like, you don't eat the Captain Crunch for the Crunch Berries?
Nah, it's just like
He's like,
straight.
no, just a straight Captain Crunch. So that's a little disappointing. Okay. Your favorite BYU memory, and we'll clarify like we did for Curtis, doesn't have to be basketball related, just your favorite memory of BYU, period.
Yeah, I'm following Curtis's lead. I was standing in a line in the BYU bookstore and wanted to buy a gift for a friend. And as I waited there in line, a friend approached me and they said, "Hey, Devin, congratulations. I understand you got your mission call to Spain." And I said, yes, I was going to be leaving 3 weeks later. And a young lady standing behind me said, "Spain?" And I turned, and that was the first time I saw my future wife. She then told me about the country of Spain. She had been a semester abroad student there, and I was very interested in hearing about her experience in Spain for the first couple of minutes, and then my interest turned to her. And we spent a lot of time together for 3 weeks, and then I left on my mission for Spain.
And did she write you throughout the mission, so you guys kept in touch during the mission? Or
She did. She was a great letter writer. I tell friends that I fell in love with my wife through her letters.
Yeah.
You know, and then I also add that as a missionary, I'd get up each morning and I'd study my scriptures, or I'd study her letters, and usually I studied her letters first and then the scriptures.
It's a good order. That's a good order.
And when they sign love on a letter, it means something completely different out in the mission field. It's like, oh my gosh. In fact, you open a letter and you just go to the bottom, see how they sign it before you even want to read it. But aren't you glad you went to the bookstore that day? Think about your life.
It's really fortunate, and I think if we wouldn't have met in the bookstore, we'd have met somewhere else, because prior to that, my parents rented an apartment from her parents when they were both in school, and then Julie ends up in my dad's religion class as she comes to school. So that was the trajectory, and I'm glad we finally met up.
That's great. You confirm
Julie's
that?
here.
Confirm all that, Julie?
She's here. Is all this a true story? Because I do believe it, and that is a great thing. Did we all, like, we used that term, we outkicked our coverage. I feel like Dave and I clearly...
We've all outkicked our coverage.
Right?
Yes, indeed.
We
Yes,
definitely
indeed.
have. So.
All right, here's the last one.
Yeah. So we talked about Dale, who we love, but we also love George Durrant. Dave and I have he's was great to us back in the day. We had him for religion class, and he's always been so kind and gracious to me. What's your favorite thing about your dad, George Durrant?
The way he loves people. I have had opportunities to travel the world, and invariably people will come up and say, "Is your father George Durrant?" And I'll say, "Yes." And I'll say, "Let me tell you a George Durrant story." And then they'll share something with me that's been impactful in their life. And just through his love and caring and willingness to memorize people's names and share stories and teach the gospel of Jesus Christ, he's impacted lives. And it's been really astounding to see and to hear, be a witness to all the different stories and people that he's touched over the years.
Yeah. That's great.
Yep, he has a great legacy of love, doesn't he? That's fantastic.
Hey, here's a parting shot from your brother.
Oh, no.
What's it like to be the Danny DeVito to Mark's Arnold Schwarzenegger? And then he sent a video clip of the of DeVito and Schwarzenegger.
You know, I was thinking about Mark the other day. You know, obviously I love the guy, but he was a great basketball player. He started every game, and I thought, wouldn't it have been great to be teammates with my brother?
Oh, how fun would that have been?
Because he you know, here I was all about trying to, you know, score baskets, and he was all about rebounding and setting picks and getting the ball to other guys. He would have been a fantastic teammate on the court, but we'd have had a ton of fun off the court.
That would have been fun. There were some games when that I called when Mark was playing, and I remember thinking, because he would start the game almost like he had a chip on his shoulder, and he'd grab like 4 boards in a row, and I'd think, is he going to get every rebound tonight? He seemed like he had the mentality he was going to get every rebound that night, and I loved the passion that he played with.
When you post him up, though, he can't stop you, can he?
No.
Oh, I have no chance against Mark. He'd just muscle me and knock me out of the way. So.
Devin will back up, face up, and just shoot it right over the top of him.
Thank you for telling Julie you guys were just going out for a hamburger for a couple of minutes and then swinging by here.
Sticking with us all night like this. We appreciate it so much.
And then our podcast will be up tomorrow, and folks will be able to enjoy this for a long, long time. But we appreciate your time.
No, thank you, and thanks for doing this. I love to listen to you too, and listen to your guests, and reflect back on some of the wonderful times that we enjoyed, and even with the more current guys to get the inside feel. It's a chance to get to know people, and it's always more fun to cheer on those that you feel like you have a little connection with. So thank you.
You bet. Our pleasure.
We love this format, Devin, because all the other stuff that we do is soundbite. You know, when we're in studio doing television shows, it's 2 minutes here, 3 minutes there. It's a video, but this is the only time we get to actually sit down and just really get into the stories and the personalities. And so it is such a treat for us to be able to do this. It's fun.
You do a great job. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thanks, Devin, so much.